Hi, welcome back to Old Soul Podcast. My name is Bree. That's spelled B-R-E-I. Thanks so much. Who doesn't love a badass woman beating up terrible men and getting revenge? Well, this film is called Ballerina. It was released in 2023 and it has a runtime of 1 hour and 32 minutes. And the director's name is Chung-Hyun Lee. So this film is about an ex-bodyguard who is getting revenge for her best friend who is deceased at some point pretty quickly in the film. The reasons behind her death sort of go into this big maze of crime in which this gang is doing terrible things, not only to women who they refer to as slaves, which is absolutely terrible, but other illegal things that are also a part of this whole crime scene, situations going on that connects to or is started by her targeting this specific man who hurt her friend, and she finds out later that he has hurt many other women, some of them minor young girls. So, trigger warning, this film has violence, it discusses issues of sexual assault. Despite all of the other triggering and terror that goes on in the film, the real heart of this film is about two best friends who sort of met each other later in their lives. It looks like the ex-bodyguard and her friend, who was in fact the ballerina that the film was titled after. She had mentioned in a flashback that they had known each other when they were younger. She recognized her, but then they rekindled a friendship, and it sort of blossomed, and you could tell that the ex-bodyguard had been going through some hard times, and maybe even still is in this present time during the film, but her friend made her feel alive. You can see glimpses of memories, bits and pieces that are colorful, bright, hues of pink and purple, and then in the present time, and we're seeing her get her revenge for her friend who ultimately dies in direct connection to this gang and this specific guy who's in this gang who is harassing women even further than what the gang is doing, but ultimately they're all in this together, and you'll see that pretty quickly in the film. And in the current time, we see more saturated coloring, dim lighting, oranges, hence her hair is orange, yellows, things like that. I don't want to say dreary, but there's a sort of numbness, a weight that I can feel as we see her go through the motions of her life, going to the convenience stores. And I want to say that this film is paced rather slowly. It's a slow burn, but there's also a push and pull. So we start the film with a fight scene, intense, fun, entertaining. It gets you right away. But then it'll slow down and then it'll pick back up. And there's several times within the film where she seeks her revenge, the final time being the climactic time. The first time is her initial attempt with some complications. She meets another main character who happens to be a victim. She's a young girl who basically tags along with her after her first attempt of getting revenge, in which she, begins to follow this man who hurt her friend, wiretaps his house. Like, she's no amateur. She is watching him like a predator. She's waiting for her moment, and she finds that moment, and she basically sets herself up as a decoy. And while she gives her best in a full fight, it becomes pretty clear that this is going to be one against many. But then this young girl, who I said before is a victim, she sees her, the bodyguard, as a hero, and I think that our ex-bodyguard does genuinely want to help. And she finds out rather quickly after scoping that guy's house out that there are a lot of victims, and unfortunately the crimes that he commits onto these women, he also records to use it as a threat. So it's just really deeply rooted in terror. There's a lot of misogyny and things like that hit home because These are things that are happening in real time that have happened, and I do feel like art is the number one version of projecting what really goes on behind the scenes in the real world. I think another really terrible fact that happens in the real world and also that is displayed in this film is that the people who are meant to protect us cannot protect us if they are corrupt. And we see these gang members talking to police officers and such on the phone. Clearly they've been bribed, are in on it, so these criminals don't actually have to take any accountability for what they do, and they continue to create more victims, more harm, and it's just a cycle. And specifically for this film, we see that women are the target of that, and this woman is going to take them down, and you'll see how she does that. I think, again, with the going back with the Ballerina title and the choice to have that as the title and it coming up a few times in the film and it being connected to the best friend, and you're gonna figure that out really quickly, but the way that she dies and the way that the ex-bodyguard isn't really able to grieve her death properly because of getting revenge really quickly and all the terrible things that she finds out from the reasons why. We see a few scenes of the best friend dancing in ballet and how she struggled with some trauma from the incident that man caused toward her. And we see there's a connection to Ballerina in that that's how she's labeled by him in one of his terrible, dirty tapes that he has of her. And he uses as blackmail. I think you're connecting the dots maybe. And then we see that he does that to other women, and then in the end when she gets revenge she says something that's just really great. And I think that the way they get revenge, and I say they because the young girl also helps her because she has a bone to pick with him as well, obviously, and rightfully so. The way that they get revenge is merciless, it is violent, it is vicious, and it is deserved. And I feel like often victims never get real justice, and that these men are protected by a misogynistic, ruling. And even if we only get this version of justice on film, it was such a sweet revenge, and everything that's anything but sweet, right? And it was nice to see them get that guy back specifically, but also take down that empire of terrible men. And even with all that, it was still really disheartening because he never once took real accountability. He still tried to victimize himself, even when he was faced with death. And that is truly terrifying. But either way, the film is really entertaining, really good. There's a lot of complex issues going on here, so I hope that I've thoroughly explained what you should expect. The friendship is the heart of the film. It is the guiding force. And again, who doesn't love to see badass women beat up terrible men, get justice, and revenge? All fictional, of course, but we can tell that probably this has happened in real life. Well, actually, I'm sure it has, unfortunately. But yeah, I recommend Ballerina, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. And again, please note the trigger warnings that I gave, and have a great day. Bye.